Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We'll start our press briefing hearing from County Executive David Crowley. Next, we will hear from Mayor Tom Barrett. Then we have Dr. Ben Weston, Director of Medical Services of the Office of Emergency Management. We are then joined by Dr. Jeanette Kowalik, Commissioner of the City of Milwaukee Health Department. And we're also pleased that Reggie Moore, Director of Office of Violence Prevention for the City of Milwaukee Health Department, was able to join us today. So thank you all for being here. And County Executive Crowley, we'll start things off with you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I just want to say thank you for everybody for being on this daily briefing. I also want to make sure that I take a moment to recognize this weekend. We know that there has been a lot of different injustices when you think about those who have lost their lives at the hands of police brutality. And this weekend really showed many people coming out to let their voices be heard. And I think it's extremely important that we recognize them, understand that we understand their hurts, their pain, their suffering. And we wanted to make sure that we support them, but we also have to make sure that we're protecting this community. And so I just want to let all those who've been on the front lines for the past 4 days, letting their voice heard, let them know that I hear you, I see you, and I'm with you. And I want to also thank everybody that came out yesterday to help out with the cleanup from what happened over the weekend. I know I had a chance to go out there as well and mingle with many of the folks. So it was a good chance to see so many folks, to see so many people to come out and to clean the city of Milwaukee and other places to show our support and solidarity with the protests. I also want to say that if you're looking at our screens, you'll see that it is blacked out. This is Blackout Tuesday. And so we want to show solidarity of everything that has been going on. And so that's the reason why you see this blackout in the background. But we also are kind of changing things up as it relates to the message. So we want to understand that safer at home has not been a thing for everybody. And so we want to tell people as they come out, enjoy the summer, because we definitely know that we're not going to be able to keep people contained for so long, but to make sure that they continue to stay safe. And so, you know, it's getting hot when you're going to the park. If you're going to go out and enjoy this weather, make sure that you are wearing a mask and protecting yourself. So you're going to see more billboards about Stay Safe Milwaukee. And it's just really to let folks know that you know, we have to do everything that we can as we go into this summer months, knowing that we're not going to be able to keep everybody contained, but to continue to practice social distancing, good hygiene, and wear a mask whenever you can. Also, just a quick update on the national testing sites. As many of you know, they have started back. So they're going to be at UMOS and at the Custer Stadium today through Thursday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and this weekend, Friday and Saturday from 11 to 5 p.m. But they will be closed on Sunday. And if there are individuals who are out protesting and you do feel symptomatic, please do not wait to call your doctor, get tested. So please call 211 to find the testing site near you. And I guess to make sure that everybody also understands, today is definitely going to be a very hot day. And I know many people want to go out and enjoy Bradford Beach. And so we want folks to understand that we will not have any lifeguards out at Bradford Beach. So when we say protect yourself, make sure that you're keeping yourself safe as it relates to swimming, as it relates to wearing a mask, and continue to practice good hygiene. So I just want to let folks know about all of that, and I will hand it off to Mayor Barrett.
Thank you very much, Mr. County Executive, and thank you for all your work. Excuse me, I want to share the sentiments of the County Executive. I think we all recognize that we are living in unprecedented times, extraordinary challenging times. And we as members of this community have an obligation to do whatever we can to achieve the America that we all want to see. The America that we want to see for ourselves, for our children, and for our grandchildren. And clearly what we are experiencing in real time is a jolt to the American psyche because of the COVID-19 pandemic, because of the economic fallout that comes from that pandemic, and because of the nationwide outcry for respect for African Americans and other people of color at the hands of police officers. This is real. This is America looking to find the best America. And I was just down on the south side of Milwaukee where there are literally hundreds of people who are marching because they want to have a better America. And so I am very cognizant of what we need to do, and that is to make sure that our police officers are respectful of people in our community, that we have to do more in the healthcare field, and this is why we've been talking for several months about the healthcare disparities and the racial inequities that we have in our community, and that we have to do everything we can to support each other as a community. So as much as I support those individuals who are out there peacefully walking and marching and protesting, I understand they're doing it because they want a better America, an America for all of us. At the same time, I recognize that there are individuals, usually much after dark, who are destroying property and are making it a dangerous place for people to be in this community. And we have to be mindful that making those decisions are not helpful to what we're trying to do, which is to make this a better community. I want to now talk a little bit about the testing because I think that that is important, and the county executive alluded to that as well. Yesterday we had 215 people who tested at Obama Custer on the north side and 703 people who tested on the south side at UMOS. That brings our total of community testing, this is the testing that's open to everyone, to over 21,000 individuals in our community. As some of you may know, we took a pause for several days last week, for 4 days actually last week, because there was a backlog in getting the testing results. We feel that that is now headed in the right direction. We didn't want people to take a test and not get the results. We felt that was unfair to them. So there was a joint decision that was made, but now I'm pleased, and I know the county executive is pleased. I know many others are pleased that we have both sites now operating, and that's something that's very, very important. So we want to continue that. I will be speaking to the police chief again later this afternoon. I've spoken to him last night at midnight. I spoke to him earlier this afternoon as we make a decision as to what decisions will be made for tonight and going toward the weekend. I will say that from the accounts that I've received from the police chief and others, clearly in the period from say 10 o'clock until 2 a.m., one of the biggest challenges we have are people who are driving very, very recklessly. And that is something that puts people in harm's way. I've seen firsthand cars traveling in reverse at high rates of speed. I've seen people driving on lawns. That is not something that is conducive to safety, quite honestly. And it's unruly, it's illegal, and that's something that we really have to have our law enforcement have the tools to be able to control. So again, I will be talking to the chief later today, once again, as to the next steps that we take. But in this very trying time, with the pandemic, with the protests we're seeing right now, with the economic fallout, we as a community have to do everything we can to be supportive of each other as well. Thank you, and I'll turn it back to you, Catherine.
Thank you, Mayor Barrett. Now we'll hear from Dr. Ben Weston.
Good afternoon, thank you. First to our numbers, we have 8,016 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Milwaukee County and 286 individuals who have died. We saw over the weekend and continue to see each day the overwhelmingly peaceful protests that by their nature bring people together in close proximity. So while demonstration and expression and protest are a necessary and encouraged aspect of our democracy, it's as important as ever to be safe and mindful of our ongoing pandemic. Exercising the essential right to demonstrate and speak freely does not have to be mutually exclusive from maintaining safety in a time of COVID-19. You can protest safely by staying outdoors, continuously moving, by wearing a mask at all times and making sure those around you do the same, and by maintaining several feet of distance from each other. With each of these steps, we can greatly decrease the spread of disease in our community. Although you as a protester may be young and may be healthy, those that you interact with on a daily basis, your parents, your grandparents, your friends, may not fall into those categories. So certainly exercise your rights, demonstrate peacefully, but as you work to improve the historical and institutional inequities that we know exist in our and many other communities, also be mindful of the health of your community. Protest safely. Take simple precautions to keep us all healthy. Thank you. And I will turn it back to Catherine.
Thank you, Dr. Weston. Dr. Pollock is joining us. She was having a few tech issues, so she still will be joining us today. But as we wait for her, I will hand it over to Reggie Moore.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Reggie Moore. I'm the director of the City of Milwaukee Office of Violence Prevention. We have been out over the weekend, including last night until about 2 a.m. Other nights it's been out to 3 a.m. Engaging in support of the protesters in terms of passing out PPE and ensuring that people are, as safe as possible. I, definitely want to echo some of the challenges, particularly around reckless driving that's been seen. And the protest leaders are working to address that. Last night was particularly calm in the Harambe neighborhood, and I want to credit the protest organizers first and foremost, but also the Alderwoman Malele Coggs, as well as Deshay, who runs the King Drive Bid, and many others who basically communicated the fact that we all stand for justice, and we are committed to supporting the protest, but at the same time, we also have to stand up for a neighborhood that has been fighting back for a long time. And so we just also want to acknowledge the protest leaders who shared that viewpoint and led the protest starting in Harambe, but throughout the community for about 15 miles. And I just want to say, as the director of the Office of Violence Prevention, that when we talk about racism as a public health issue, when we talk about violence as a public health issue, these are things that are structural, historical, and systemic. And we have to be committed to not just hearing, to not just marching, but being responsive to the demands both locally and nationally that are coming from this protest, and stay focused on what has led us to this moment and this movement that is occurring not only in this country, but internationally. And so we also understand and appreciate that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and that people are putting themselves at risk in terms of being in a large crowd and potentially exposing themselves to COVID. And so again, that's why we've been committed to passing out PPE. I think over the past 3 days, we've passed out over 900 masks alone. Most of the protesters that we've seen actually are wearing masks, and so those that we offer them to gladly accept them. So again, we want to stay focused on the purpose and the message, and we want people to be as safe and healthy as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Reggie. And Dr. Kowalik was able to join us, so we'll hand it back to you.
All right, thank you all. Good morning or good afternoon. I had some tech issues, so I apologize for that. But as you know, we're dealing with a crisis within a crisis, and I'm sure this may have been stated already. We addressed this yesterday in one of our media updates, but the fact of the matter is COVID-19 is here. It's a pandemic, and we're putting a lot of energy into preventing the spread and keeping people from becoming ill, additional disability tied to COVID-19, and of course death, which is the ultimate goal, is to prevent deaths associated with COVID-19. We know that since last week's events and then all of the demonstrations and protests that started after that fact, there was a number of questions about risk and people deciding whether they were going to go out and take a stand for not only the now, but the future, knowing that the risk of contracting COVID-19 is high, especially when you're congregated. So we know that people have the right to assemble. We've seen this in various places throughout the country, but we also know that there is still this public health threat right now. So I'm glad that Reggie, who's done excellent work through the Office of Violence Prevention and the Mayor's Office related to addressing racism as a public health issue or crisis. And we say that not just because it's cliche or anything like that, it's taking a stand on addressing the elephant in the room. We know that COVID-19 has continued to target many of our Black and Brown communities, as stated even last week, how we're now seeing an uptick in the Latinx community. Now the Latinx community has the majority of the cases in the city of Milwaukee, and African-American rate is second to that at this point in time. So again, just acknowledging that we're in double crisis mode right now, dealing with COVID and also dealing with racism. We also know violence is a public health issue as well, and a public health crisis. So all of these things are connected. We look at racist structures, policies, and practices as the foundation for some of these other issues that we're seeing play out right now. So addressing the foundational problem will help resolve or help to reduce the impact of the other problems. We also know that this is not something that can be addressed in a week. And we know that there's going to have to be some significant change to truly change where we're going as a country right now, as a state and as a city. So, you know, all of those individuals that are going out and protesting, again, we're just encouraging people to, again, understand the risk of being out and about. If you have been involved in any protest activities, you should be wearing a mask, but we're also encouraging people to do that anyway. If you are a carrier, the mask helps to contain the virus. So making sure you're doing that properly, that the mask is actually covering your nose and your to your chin or your mouth. We've seen some people that just have it like this, and we know that's not effective. So making sure you're wearing it properly. The hygiene is where it needs to be as far as hand hygiene, using sanitizer, washing your hands if at all possible, and then getting tested. We know that these community testing sites are still allowing people to be tested if they don't have symptoms, which is important because it helps us understand how prevalent COVID-19 is in certain communities. So definitely take advantage of the testing sites. That they will be up for a while. We don't have an end date at this point in time, but we definitely want to let the community know that we are committed to making sure that there's testing, community testing sites on the north and south sides of town, and that there's also a variety of other outlets for people to get tested, and I'm sure those were mentioned already. Another point I want to talk about related to racism as a public health crisis, because I think a lot of people don't know what that means for us. And at the city of Milwaukee level, when we passed our ordinance following the county, it includes 5 steps or 5 actions that need to happen to truly start moving the needle here. And we were still in the first of those 5 steps, which is the environmental scan, which is to be conducted by the Equal Rights Commission at the city of Milwaukee, looking at every city entity and how we do business, basically. Then the next step is to promote inclusivity within city government, city groups, different departments, and increasing diversity, and not just at the ground level or boots on the ground staffing or direct service staffing, but in leadership. So it's important to have diversity and leadership at all levels. It shouldn't just be the people that are interacting with the community. The next is the reports that come from the Equal Rights Commission being, it's important that those are put into practice for organizations. So it's not something that just sits on a shelf, but they're used to guide systematic change within each city department. This also includes technical assistance and training, and the county has been very actively involved in that too. The next is advocating and drafting policies that will bring about true change. So this is set to increase health outcomes, as well as advocate for social justice and individual advocacy. And then the last is related to encouraging others, including various levels of government, so federal, state, and local, to declare racism as a public health crisis across the country. So my chief of staff, Lillian Payne, has been very instrumental. She was the first one when she was involved with the Wisconsin Public Health Association to bring about this change. And then eventually the county and the Office of African American Affairs and former county exec Abley really helped to move this forward at the county level. And then we were able to do so at the city level through a variety of partners of the Common Council Mayor's Office and Equal Rights Commission. So that is important because once you acknowledge that, it also helps to divert some resources and energy behind making some change. So, you know, oftentimes we talk about racism, we see it from just an individual perspective, but we know that the systemic and a policy level racism is what has really been causing a lot of the issues that we see now. So we, again, are very committed to dismantling racism, and we know that it's going to be a process, but there has to be a commitment, and not just within the city government and the county government, but also within private sector and various organizations that are taking a stand, like using this, the Blackout Tuesday as a way to bring awareness to what's happening right now. It's a safe way to protest or show some support or solidarity. It's also noted like people that were using their cars to have like a caravan during some of the protest activities. But just again, looking at ways to reduce exposure while still getting the message across of advocating for true change in our state, in our country, and of course locally here in the city and county of Milwaukee. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to the question and answer part of our briefing. At this point, I just see one question. So just a reminder, if you do have any questions, feel free to chat them or let me know if you'd like to ask the guests your own question. Our question right now is from Kent Wainscott, and it is for Mayor Barrett. Kent says, Mayor, you wore a mask while walking today, but convincing people to wear masks in the heat may become more challenging. As the temperatures soar, many people are finding it more difficult to wear masks. What is your message to them?
Find a more comfortable mask is my immediate message, is find a more comfortable mask. Seriously, I think that's the message. And the reason that it is still so important to wear masks is, I go back to, I think it was probably late March, maybe early April, and there was a huge gathering near Brookfield Square where there were a lot of people who were objecting to the order that was in place then. And I think there were a lot of people who were critical of those individuals because they were not socially distancing. And there was obviously a political element to that, and they chose not to socially distance. Then we had the election, and again, a lot of us raised the issue that having 20,000 people go to vote in very concentrated areas was a problem. And I said that over and over again because of the need for social distancing. And now we've got what's occurring right now in real time, which is very, very real and very, very raw and very, very genuine. But unfortunately, COVID-19 does not allow for exemptions. And it doesn't allow for exemptions for people who want to protest against a stay-at-home order. It doesn't allow for exemptions for people who go to the polls. It doesn't allow for exemptions who want to go to church or other gatherings. And it doesn't allow for exemptions for people who are genuinely angry, as I am, as to what we have seen in America in terms of police-community relations in a lot of communities, including Milwaukee. So my message is very, very clear. No matter what your politics are, no matter what you believe, wear a mask, do the social distancing. And I know it's getting hot. And again, I think that there are different types of masks, and I'll let the health experts maybe weigh in on that. But it's pretty clear from all the evidence that I have seen that social distancing and wearing a mask can help you be safer and help those around you be safer as well. So it's not just about you, it's about people you come into contact with as well.
I would just like to echo the mayor's sentiments, to be quite frank with you. And if it's that uncomfortable to where you can't wear a mask and go somewhere where you're not around people, I think that we have to think about the fact that we're going into a summer where we're dealing with a pandemic, something that we've never seen before. And so this is going to be uncomfortable for all of us. And so whether you are sweating under there, whether you can't, it's being uncomfortable or whatever reason that you want to take it off, I think it's extremely important that you recognize that this isn't just about you. This is about your family, your friends, and your neighbors, and keeping everybody protected.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I mean, the point of wearing a mask should be something that is like a temporary thing because you're going somewhere or something like that. You know, of course, if you're a first responder or a healthcare worker and you're wearing a mask throughout the course of your entire shift, that's why the whole concept of fit testing and having an N95, you know, the gold standard, or I say the Trojan magnums of masks, is the best one to have, because you're making sure that it's really working, but it actually fits your face. It's protecting that any air from getting into you that's from the outside. So that's one thing. As the mayor noted too, like there's other options, and as a county exec too noted, like, you know, the comfort level, but also making sure that people are aware of why you're doing this. It's not just for yourself, but it's for other people, protecting other people from the virus.
Thank you all. Our next question is from Tiffany Shepard with CBS 58. It's for Mayor Barrett. She asks, Alderwoman Coggs said she and other community stakeholders asked for several nights that MLK Drive be blocked for through traffic to at least attempt to lessen the amount of damage, and that request was not honored by MPD or the mayor's office. Can you provide more context?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I talked to Alderwoman Coggs yesterday. She brought this issue up with me when we had the afternoon press conference, and I said, well, let's talk to Chief Morales about it, and let's see what Chief Morales can say about this. And his response was that yesterday, unlike over the weekend, we did not have the mutual aid assistance from Racine, Kenosha, Waukesha, and West Allis, I believe. And so there were a lot fewer police officers that were at our disposal for last night, fewer than we had on Saturday or Sunday night. We still had the National Guard. And as I indicated to the Alderwoman, that if she was interested, I could certainly work with her to contact the governor today to see if it was necessary for us to have the National Guard. Now, the National Guard presents other issues because there are some individuals who don't want to have the National Guard and have their visible presence. But I made that offer when I talked to the governor this morning. We talked about that briefly. I think he has some concerns about whether that would be an escalation. But I certainly want to work to make sure that we're protecting all parts of the city, including MLK Drive. And so I'm eager to work with the Alderwoman and others to make sure we're doing everything we can to keep people and local businesses, all businesses, safe in the city of Milwaukee.
Thank you. Allison Durr also asked a question of everyone. Allison Durr with Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. She asked a few specific questions related to protests, number of arrests, and potentially a situation that happened at Mesmer High School. I don't know if Mayor Barrett, you're able to provide any additional context there.
I had seen something about Mesmer High School, but I can't confirm it, and I just simply don't know. I'm not trying to dodge the question. And I'll have to get the specific numbers from the police department. I didn't have them in preparation for this gathering because I felt this was going to be more focused on COVID-19, but I'm more than happy. We'll make sure that we get those questions for anybody, those questions answered for anybody who wants them. Happy to answer those questions.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have another question from Ashley Sears, and she would like to ask that of our guests. Are you on mute, Ashley?
I am, sorry about that. I just had a question about last night's protest. We were hearing from several people that it remained peaceful up until people left the suburbs and made their way to Milwaukee. They said that they were tear gassed by police and that some stop strips were put out. I'm just wondering if you guys have any answers about why these tactics were used for an otherwise peaceful protest, and if you guys are aware of this.
I think Reggie may have been on the street. Reggie, do you have any information on either of those?
Right, so at that point we were back in Harambe, but we did get reports of that. They had marched through Whitefish Bay, Glendale, and near Bayshore, and then returned around back to Silver Spring. And I have gotten reports that the tear gas was used at that point when they were trying to make a right on Silver Spring. And I can't answer as to why those tactics were used.
Were those your main questions, Ashley, or did you have anything else? All right. It looks like Ashley's all set, and I do not see any other additional questions. So, oh, there's one. Okay, wait, one more from Nick Williams with the Milwaukee Business Journal. Is the city providing any assistance to businesses that want to board up their windows and doors? And what assistance is available to businesses that need help with cleanup?
Well, I know for certain because our Office of Violence Prevention was a major part of that effort yesterday. So Reggie and 414 for Life and his team were out yesterday. So the city obviously is putting resources through the Office of Violence Prevention into cleaning up the neighborhoods and working a lot with community partners, which is very, very important. We certainly can work with those businesses who feel the need to do some boarding up. And so I would contact your alderman, contact my office, and we can have that conversation to see what resources are necessary. I'm hopeful that we won't see any more looting, but again, that remains to be seen right now.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Those are all the questions I'm seeing. So we will see you on Thursday at 2 p.m.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.